I could steer. Oh, the Great Salt Lake.
All right, welcome to the happy hour. Grab a drink and, sit back and let's chat.
So how are you doing today, Jared?
I'm good. How are you, Dave? It's my second podcast today.
Oh, okay.
Knocking them out.
I'll go easy on you.
Well, I've had plenty of Guinness through all these podcasts. But yeah, so we don't have a guest today, but I did have a couple of things I wanted to bring up. Our last guest, Tracy, and her mother and her daughter, they came on and they talked about the Masks for Tooele thing that they're doing, where they're making masks and giving them out for free. Not just them. There were a handful of ladies. They were about 10% of the force that was making those, and that was a good thing. And regardless of how you feel about the coronavirus and the reaction to that and everything else, what they were doing was a good thing. But 19 hours ago, Tracy put on Masks for Tooele. After much thought, due to numerous personal threats to our families and the community as a whole, we regret to inform you that until a safe pickup location can be found, both masks and locations will be closed. Masks will continue to be made, and we will inform everyone when a safer location is found. We have reached out to other locations and hope to find a safer location soon. We thank you for all your support through this all. Stay safe. So I reached out to her, and I know Dave has a personal relationship with her, and maybe you could talk to her, but I want to go on a tirade for a minute about whoever is threatening them. I don't care how you feel about the virus right now. You do not go out and threaten people that are doing, well, one, regardless of how you feel, they're putting their labor into something that they're giving away for free. At cost to them, they are putting something out there. And why someone would go and threaten them or be disparaging towards them. Those people, those ladies, and the guys that are doing it are doing a monumental effort. They're putting in their time. Their calories are being burnt to try to help people out. Now, and I say this, you may not believe that the coronavirus or there should be a lockdown or we should go to the measures we've been going to, but it's not like you're being charged by these people for their energy, for their property that they're giving out. So if you are one of those people who has threatened them, get a bag of dicks and swallow it.
Swallow hard.
Yeah. Choke on it. That's BS. Regardless how you feel, you should say to them, thank you. Thank you for what you've done. Because what they've done hasn't hurt anybody at all, except maybe them. I mean, they're putting their effort into it. So go on to Masks for Tooele, throw some thank yous at them and everything else. Offer up your support, whatever you can do. But that's all I wanted to say about it. You got anything on that, Dave?
Yeah, that's the first time I've heard about this, and yeah, that's crappy. No one should be threatening anybody with violence or harassment over making masks. And it sometimes just Tooele can shock me. That's what I'll say.
Well, I think it's humans. There's humans that are just, you don't have to believe that this is an issue to be respectful of people that do. Now, I'm sure everyone who feels that the virus is a large threat would like to see you wear a mask. But I haven't seen any of these ladies do anything violent towards anyone or yell at anyone or any of that. They just put their efforts out there for the community. That's it. So,
Yeah.
you threateners, choke on a dick.
Or
That's
two.
all. Yep. Or all the dicks. Line all the dicks up. And then another thing. This is a funny one. We talked about this on my other podcast, but I want to cover it again. So, did you see that NYC 311 report line? You know what that
They
is?
did. What was it reporting?
If you see people gathered or businesses open, it shouldn't be in New York City.
Okay.
Old Commissar de Blasio
Mm-hmm.
got on there and made the statement. Well, news is in. They got lots of pictures. And I want you to guess what those pictures were of.
Do I need to guess? I can imagine.
It was an avalanche of penis. The poor bastard that ran that site, he has seen, they got pictures of penis from other countries. That just an avalanche. They might have got, I don't know, 50 or 20. Hey, this guy's business is open, whatever. Tattletales. Other than that, thousands of phallus, just genitals, just an avalanche of penis. And that's what they got.
Well, that sounds like that's what they deserve. I don't think we should have hotlines informing.
No.
Yeah, that's a little beyond.
If you feel that a business shouldn't be open, the proper way to deal with it is don't shop there. Simple as that. Don't go there. If you feel a business shouldn't be running the way they run, don't go there. Just go somewhere else or don't go at all.
Vote with your dollar.
Yep. Vote with your feet. But yeah, so I thought that was hilarious. I hope they forwarded every phallus to de Blasio. I hope he got to see every one. I wonder, the guy that ran it, there's probably some, I don't know, dispatcher, tech cop running it. And he goes into work that day thinking, I'm saving the community. And the very first picture is just nothing but penis. And the one after, I'll bet he's at a therapist right now, laying on a couch, crying his eyes out, talking about all of the penis. But yeah, so but that's
your imagination, Jared.
Yeah. Well, hey, the reporting's out. They got millions of it. So today we have two subjects to talk about. So I've got a couple of here later on. I'm going to grill Dave about Bitcoin. I want Dave to Dave's got lots of knowledge on Bitcoin, and I would like him to enlighten all of us. I may push back once in a while on it, but I do think it is the future, and or not just Bitcoin. There's other cryptocurrency, but I do think that something like that is the future. And in order for it to become a mode for, defending your wealth and shopping and everything else for commerce, it has to become more popular. And so I thought we'd start in our small community. Dave could give us a quick mass education, and maybe we'll see some Bitcoin spiking. But before that, I wanted to cover, I am an extreme libertarian. I believe in those values. And so I want to cover first principles because I've seen a lot of stuff on social media in this time that has me a little bit nervous. And so I want to talk about those things right now. So I'm going to have Dave kick off with Ilhan Omar's Ilhan.
So I just want to put this out there. I really do try to sometimes find that common ground with Democrats, and on occasion it
I
works.
do too. I'm like, hey, you breathe oxygen? I breathe oxygen.
Well, our representative in another state, not this one, Minnesota,
Omar up in
Ilhan
Minnesota.
Omar. She's the Muslim from Somalia that married her brother or cousin or something like that, and has this
Or-
little scandal.
Her big trouble right now is her political advisor that she was paying half of her political finances to, or reelection finances to, that she now just that she married a couple months ago, and she's being investigated for this. The issue with that is by her marrying him, she's under congressional investigation, but I don't want to get bogged down in that.
Yeah, her personal life's her personal life. I don't.
Except when she's using her political finances to essentially pay herself, which is what she's doing now.
Yeah, she didn't write the rules, I guess, but
Well, she's being investigated for them.
so anywho, yeah, I found some common ground that I think I have in common with Representative Ilhan Omar. She introduces a bill to cancel all rent and mortgage payments during the COVID-19 pandemic. And I'm thinking, prior to seeing this, I know that a lot of small businesses are starting to suffer regulations of the such that close them down or make them only accessible through takeout. Basically, the government's clamping down on these small little guys, okay? While bigger guys are still allowed to flourish.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of these people, they hire people in our community, and if they're not able to work, they're not able to pay their rent. So, okay, Ilhan Omar and AOC and a few other of our favorite Democrats, I don't see any Republicans on here, but they're going to say, hey, look, if we're going to go extremes on small businesses and shop owners and force all those people out of work or minimize their capacity to work and provide labor and earn, why do the banks get one free ticket to continue on the way that they do? So this whole thing is a food chain. Let's think of it as an environment, an ecosystem. And the government, the Republicans mostly, who want to shut down the smaller businesses, they just took a bite right out of that ecosystem. So the food chain is broken.
Do Republicans want to shut down smaller businesses? That's my question.
I don't know if they want to.
I would like to
like
see
they did.
first before that argument was made, I would like to see evidence of that. Now, I would argue the evidence shown is that I have my own personal feelings on this and why it was done. And it would be extremely unpopular. But right now in politics, everything is political. And I believe that this is politicized also. That a lot of Democrats a lot of their reaction on this with these shutdowns without evidence of them being needed, the continuous shutdown without evidence of them being needed, might be, I'm not going to say it is because I have no direct evidence. I'm just going off of a guy looking from the outside, might be them trying to stifle an economy that up until March was rolling along rather well. And it might be that they're doing that to change what was a almost guaranteed reelection of Donald Trump.
And that's fine, whatever, I guess. I can agree with you on that probably for at least 85% of that, Jared. But the fact is,
most of the Republican-controlled cities and states are not in lockdown.
But the fact is, I can't go to Cold Stone right now and get ice cream. That's a fact.
Was that a choice made by the government, or was that a choice made by Cold Stone?
That I don't know.
That was a choice made by Cold Stone.
Mhm. So what about all the barber shops and all the
Hey, that
salons?
that's a different animal. Those ones have had government edicts come down on them.
Okay.
Now, if we just look here in Utah, in Salt Lake, they've tried pushing a lockdown. The Democrats have, who control Salt Lake City and Salt Lake County, and the Republicans have fought against it. Now, I'm not bolstering for the Republicans because I think if you see a dog turd out on the lawn, it doesn't matter whether the side came out of the dog first or last, it's still a dog turd. And I see both parties as that dog turd. I know some people equate it to the wings of an eagle, but no, it's both sides of the dog turd.
Well, it's the center that usually stays soft. So when you
Huh?
step on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But either way, the fact is those stores are being forced to close by government, and those are small business owner stores. So they're eating the dog turd, man. The banks, guess what? My mortgage, I still, thank God I'm not affected by this that much. I don't have, I stepped down, shall I say, from one of my jobs. I still have another. So, I try to work two jobs at once all the time, just in case. So
Well,
I'm not affected by this, but there's people who work at those salons and haircut
mhm.
stores. Those people are affected by this, and the
They,
bank is still going to demand the mortgage. The rent is still going to have to be paid.
they are, yes.
So you're breaking the ecosystem by saying, okay, the little guy, you're going to be restricted, but these gigantic mammoth institutions, and you know what? Okay, if a bank doesn't get a little interest, who's hurt? You know, who is hurt if the bank doesn't get a little interest? It's going to be people on top.
Let me ask you another question. Let's say there's that barber shop up on Main Street, right? Or pick any strip mall out there that has a barber shop in it.
Mm-hmm.
Or would that barber specifically be renting from a bank?
Technically, yeah, I guess you could say yes.
Really? Because
Because
what if that strip mall was built on by a guy on his own property?
well, I'm
Well,
sure the guy.
then that barber shop doesn't pay their mortgage. That guy dumped his energy into a property and built a strip mall. And say this strip mall has a barber shop and a Cold Stone and a beauty salon, right? So it's a 3-shop strip mall. Let's say he poured his effort into there. Maybe he got loans to deal with that. But let's say this guy's, I don't know, 60 years old, wife's fighting cancer, kid was the barber. So then that guy, who that's his monthly income, now doesn't get paid. He's not a big bank. He's just a guy that rents his property out.
Right. And I see your
The
point.
banks aren't the end point of all money. Sometimes the end point is just another guy that's suffering next to you.
No, I disagree with that. I mean, the end of the food chain in a pandemic like COVID-19, for most of us, I believe, is going to be the bank.
So this guy doesn't get his rent. So he can't pay the bank what he normally peeled off rent for the bank. But also without that rent, he doesn't get to eat. Maybe he's got a mortgage. More than likely, let's say his house is paid off. The wife's cancer has to be put on hold, whatever therapies come with that. Because a moratorium was laid on him, one, that his small business of that strip mall is now shut down. And then another moratorium was laid on him that he can't fill it with something different, but he also can't collect from it. But I bet at the end of the year, his property taxes on that, which are commercial property taxes, different level than a house, will still be due.
Those will be due.
And then again, the burying of his dead wife, that'll be another, 10 to 15 grand minimal on top of that. You see where I'm going with this? That's why first principles matter. Property matters.
That guy, because of the smaller fish that are being moratorium, is doomed anyway. So if he doesn't pay the bank,
Not necessarily, because if one of those businesses fails, he can rent that out again. But if you put a moratorium on it, that business gets to hold that indefinitely. He can't open that up again. Now, they have put out small business loans. Now, I agree. The government has taken a giant shit on us. But that doesn't mean you pass the shit along just like that. Now, were we to, I guess you could put a cutoff at this, where, let's say, any type of rent or mortgage due to a bank, due to an institution that can survive this, can be, you can put a halt on that. But then again, you're being dishonest in your first principles, because you got to believe in property rights. You have to defend that, even at cost to your own welfare. Because if you give up on that, none of it matters.
in that case, then you have to open up the salons and the barber shops, and
there you go. That's my stance. Open them up.
And I'm completely in agreement with you, but that's not what's going to happen.
You can open them up with rules. Okay. If you run a salon and a barber shop, here's how you have to do it. You have to have this amount of cleaning between customers. You have to wear this level of PPE. You have to do this, but they just close them down. But you don't want to pass that to say, okay, we closed them down. It hurt them. So what we'll do is we'll hurt the guy who had the small, the strip mall or the structure they were renting. Because, yeah, probably 50% of the time that'll hit a bank, but 50% of the time it won't. Now, I'm going to be upfront and honest about this. My grandfather, through the 60s and 70s, built some apartments. They're nothing fancy. They're in Grantsville. And my uncle and my grandmother managed those apartments. My grandfather passed away. Managed those apartments. Now, they are not wealthy by any stretch of by anyone's measure. They aren't wealthy. I would say they live hand to mouth through those apartments that their patriarch poured his energy into. Now, if you give up on those first principles, you're putting two people to where they can't eat, to where they're begging. You see what I'm saying?
Right. And somebody's eating a bag of dicks on this, no matter what. I'm saying this. The banks are like the strongest, most fortified. They've got the most hit points for the
They are.
for the act.
In the case of my uncle and my grandmother, you could say, oh, you don't pay the banks, but they're the ones hit. Innocent parties in this are the ones hit.
Yeah, no doubt.
The banks aren't going to feel that at all.
Well, the banks are going to want their mortgage payment on the apartment complex.
There is no mortgage on it. It's owned outright, built by hand. When I tell you built, it wasn't that he went and got a loan and hired a guy with the tractor to build it. He built the sons of bitches.
Yeah. I mean,
so then you throw
where does it stop?
Then you throw away property rights. You may as well put on a blue hat and raise the socialist flag.
Well, I would say that we're already socialists. I mean,
so fight more for it.
There are ways around socialism, but people got to want to take that route.
Yeah, it's called libertarianism. It's called if you're one of those renters who can't afford that place, you find the means to get out from under it, whether it's move in with family members, break your lease, things like that. But if you pass that up, if you can guarantee it'll only stop at an organization that could withstand 6 months of loss, fine. But I'll bet it wouldn't even end there. I'll bet it wouldn't stop at one of those cases 50% of the time. I'll bet it would stop at an individual that lives hand to mouth off that.
Well, Jared, like I said, the violation of the property right has already been violated with the small shop owner that has to close down and has to fire the employees. There you go. That is the violation of the non-aggression principle, the first property. It's done. It's there. It's already there. And me personally, I would even argue that it's already violated once they start printing QE1 and QE2 and QE3 and and beyond. But here in this situation, with the banks being the most strongest, most fortified of the business class, I think that they should take the brunt of the action that is coming at us.
So then how do you weigh that? Do you weigh that on a company that has stocks and shares of this much? I think the banks are a lot of the cause of this, but do you weigh it on a company that has the stocks and shares that can withstand this, that they're the ones that get hit? Do we start up a gulag system where we send the kulaks? What do we do? How do we manage this?
While the government is putting these restrictions on us, that those shops that have to pay the mortgage, those employees that have to pay a mortgage, freeze them. Let the bank collect it next month. And it's fair.
What if that mortgage doesn't go to a bank?
Yeah. Then you're probably going to have to violate that first property even harder, that first property right.
So you would rather eat a person who provides much more calories for an industry for a person that provides smaller calories for an industry? So if that strip mall, that guy goes under with this strip mall, he has to sell it off. The guy doesn't want the strip mall anymore. He mows it down, puts up something different, then everybody's out.
If the submarine's sinking, sometimes you got to close the doors on people. Yeah. That is the way it is. And
well, then the business is out anyway. The barbershop's out anyway.
No, the barbershop isn't out unless it doesn't pay its mortgage. If the barbershop doesn't pay its mortgage.
I'm saying you say the mortgage doesn't go up. So we're still in this little 3-store strip mall I've got.
Right.
So that guy doesn't get paid, right? His wife dies. He's got to sell the property. Got to pay for that wife being dead. Hasn't been paid all month. He hasn't eaten either. He's down about 15 pounds. Right? So he sells that 3-store strip mall. And the guy that buys it at a value, a screaming value, because this guy's trying to get out from under it. But that guy says, wait, I don't want to do a strip mall. Look what happened last time. I don't want renters like that. I'm going to tear down the strip mall. I'm going to build storage units because they didn't come after them. Or I'm going to build a park and ride because they didn't come after them.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to pay that upfront cost to have the building torn down. So then to relieve the pressure on the businesses that couldn't stay open because of socialism, you added more socialism, and now there's no buildings at all. So those businesses die in the end anyway, plus another one that was an honest actor. And because you decided that, well, wait, we got to help out this one little guy, you destroyed 4 guys.
Yeah. I'm thinking that more people will lose their mortgage if we don't put a restriction on the bank.
I agree. I agree they will. I agree. I 100% agree. You know, I bought my house. When I bought my house, I had one stipulation. It had to be under this much so that if I lost all my income, I could panhandle enough to pay the mortgage. That was my requirement when I bought my house.
Well, my wife decided that we needed a house, so I didn't have much of a choice. But
Yes.
believe me, I liked the idea of a motor home where I could run away when the cops start banging on my door saying, "Hey, it's illegal to park here."
But see, that's where first principles apply. And this goes back, I mean, we're talking back to Smith, but when the first principles were first written down in the United States was by George Mason. And that's Mason University back east. George Mason wrote them down. He's kind of the guy who instructed all the other founding fathers, all the liberty-minded founding fathers, the anti-federalist guys. And he wrote the Bill of Rights for Virginia, which included the gun rights and the property rights. So you have to respect someone's property. So I would say, as a libertarian, you have to make that hard stance and always look at it. How do we defend the property owner? Regardless, yes, sometimes a bad actor, JP Morgan Chase is going to get in, or one of the larger banks is going to get in. That a lot of them are bad actors. There are banks that aren't bad actors, but there are banks that are. But we have to figure out how to defend them. Now, we can go socialist in what I would argue would be a better route. Is we go to the banks and we say, look, we just blew all this money into the market like cocaine up a hooker's ass. We blew all this money into the market. We want you to voluntarily work with all those people who are down. You figure out how. We want you to work with them. So then you go in and you make a deal with the property rights owner. It says, yeah, we're going to rob your grandchildren of this, but you know, it's for the greater good, which is what they're doing. They're robbing the grandchildren.
It's all about the greater good, right?
Yeah.
How great can you make the good?
But, well, the ultimate good would be if government stayed out of your daily life. That would be the ultimate good. And then you let a place like Salt Lake City go under, and those small businesses that don't survive, they say, wait a second, this is my fault because I chose to start my business in a market that's unstable because of its government. So then you let them vote with their feet where they'll try that business again.
Well, the pandemic situation is not something that's going to last forever. And the way I look at it is you got to look at it like a battle. You know, you're going to take some casualties. Where you're going to take the casualties, and you want to take the least amount of casualties and come out as smelling like a rose as possible in the end.
But okay, let's go back to my grandmother's apartment. Let's say because of a month down, my grandmother and uncle has to sell their apartments. Is that and let's not look at it as a grandmother. Let's say a lady in her 90s and her late 50s-year-old son who manage these and live month to month through these. Let's say that they have to get rid of that income. Or is that the casualty you want to see?
That would be one of
the casualty of the 25-year-old kid, because that's predominantly who they rent to is younger people. Or would that be a better casualty to have absorbed? Which casualty would be a better casualty on the society?
Well, geez, you know, honestly, if I'm like 90 years old,
would a 25-year-old losing his apartment, he has no punishable lease on it, or would an old lady and an old guy losing their income in their twilight years, which would be the more nominal casualty?
Now, are you asking me through socialist eyes or
I'm asking you as you.
Me. Well, I wish I could, you know, those videos with the Indians with the sticks and they're hitting people because they're standing too close to each other, or they're not supposed to be
Yep.
in the streets.
Yep.
So if it were me, that's what I would do to everyone who's not using Bitcoin right now. But the fact is, we're on a centralized Federal Reserve socialist economy that we pretend to be a free market
You're
economy.
off subject. You're off subject because Bitcoin would not be an answer for right now.
Actually, yeah, it would be.
Bitcoin had the nation got into it 2 years ago. Yeah, right now, even if the nation had got into it last year, would not be an answer for this situation right now. It wouldn't stop. It wouldn't stop the barbershops from being mandatorily closed. It wouldn't stop Cold Stone from deciding it's not going to serve ice cream because the 15-year-old girl has to flop it on that lump of steel and stir it around. It wouldn't have stopped that. So, but the answer is the right here and now.
Well, I'm still going to say that I believe we need to freeze the payments on the banks for those people who are moratoriumed and cannot collect payment for their business because of the government.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think, first of all, gosh, I hope there's no one out there at 90 years old trying to run apartments.
I'm telling you there is.
Retire, live, take that money and live with it,
The
because
apartments is her retirement.
right? Yeah, and at 90 years old, if our economy is saying, hey, you're 90 years old and you still have to work, so make sure you're maintaining those apartment buildings, then, I mean, tell me that isn't a flop. That's a huge flop. Because in a society where the economy is free, I can guarantee you, probably at 90 years old and being hardworking, you'll probably have been able to have been successful enough to stop working. But in this economy, with our centralized Federal Reserve and our banking system and our government's able to impose moratoriums on us, our dog eat dog legalese, the best strategy for this economy is to first be a lawyer and then go out and find a job. Because
Well, I'm going to argue from first principles. First principles are life, liberty, and property. Those are first principles. Now, I know that they teach you the pursuit of happiness. That wasn't originally in there. The Federalists forced that to be changed. You know, step one, send Thomas Jefferson overseas so you don't have to face Jefferson and Madison at the same time. Step two, try to rewrite stuff. But property, you have to respect people's property. You have to, and regardless if that person's a jackass or a banker or a bigwig or high on the hog, whatever, you have to respect property rights. Because without it, what does it all matter?
right,
Why
and
build it?
it's already been violated.
If the property rights can just be torn down right now, why would I go out tomorrow and build something? Why would I go out tomorrow and build a strip mall or say I want to build a shop that I'll rent out to mechanics or apartments or a house? If your property rights can be violated that flippantly, why go out and build something? Why go out and improve? And then you've got that issue that rolls downhill. Why are there so many homeless in San Francisco? They got priced out of the market because they can't build more houses. It's a supply and demand thing. So, and then the houses that are built, they have such a high regulatory cost that no one's going to build any house for under $500,000. And they've got an influx of work that can afford that. So your average person isn't going to be able to buy a house there. So they end up slow homeless.
Yeah, maybe there's some good
For
YouTube.
the first little while, you go live in an apartment with a buddy. Yeah, that buddy does a little bit of drugs. Hey, you jump in with him on that on the weekends, you know. Starts out marijuana. He brings a girl over that has coke. That's awful expensive, but I played with that for 6 months. You know, let's run with that. Oh, shit. Well, coke's too expensive. I fell. I hurt myself. Went to the doctor. He got me on some opiates, but that's even more expensive than Coke. So, now I'm junking it down on the street. It's only $5 a hit for heroin.
Well, those are self-made decisions, Jared. I mean,
Not the loss of your house.
no, the loss of your house.
Not when you're marketed out of it. But anyways, we've got off track. But my point is to defend property rights of the little guy, you have to defend property rights of the big guy.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be, you have to defend it or don't.
Well, from my perspective, I see the banks as the ones that probably do a lot of violation of the rights of the little guy. I mean, I don't think the banks losing out on a mortgage payment is a bad thing during the
If you
pandemic.
can guarantee that it all went to banks, I'd back your play.
They're going to make a lot of money off of this pandemic. And I agree with the Democrats on this. If the little guys have to suffer, the big guys should also. We should all suffer equally under the socialism imposed.
So then, but there's those middle guys, that wonderful middle class that's eroded.
Well, yeah, that's very eroded.
And they get to suffer twice.
Probably. We'll probably also.
That's your plan, is to erode that middle class, the foundation of the nation.
It wasn't my plan.
Well, that's what you're saying right now.
Negative, my
You're
friend.
you're backing that play.
I am backing the fact. I'm backing the fact that if you're going to force companies to close, but you're not going to preserve where they are at the current moment, and you're going to let them degrade because they're not producing, they're not working, just because the banks want their mortgage payments, I think we can freeze both tails of the snake for the amount of time that the government wants to impose these quarantines on us.
Okay. And
if you don't,
middle class that owns commercial property gets hit twice. They can't go to whatever job they had, and they also can't make money from this investment they made. So they're hit twice.
Who's making money except for the banks? And the money's not there to pay the rents.
So would you guarantee that only banks got hit with this mortgage freeze and this rent freeze, or would it be just universal?
It looks like it's universal.
Yeah.
Looks like it's universal.
All right. So that
nobody's paying for a place to live.
And then you know who wins in your plan the best? The banks win the best in your plan.
How so?
Because when those middle class people have to sell their commercial properties, who buys it?
The banks. Okay. But we're talking about maybe, hopefully, well, you know what? I can't even say that.
Well, we'll talk about a barber who invested.
How long will this last?
Let's say a barber invested $100,000 in opening up his barber shop in that strip mall. Let's say that was the front he invested, whether he invested it through a loan or through money he saved. Let's say the owner of that commercial property invested $750,000 in that commercial property. But that guy who saved longer, who took a bigger chance, gets hit to save the barber when he could rebuild and do that quite easily. The middle class guy, he's going to be like, oh, fuck this. And the banker's probably just sitting at the side of the road waiting. He knows what's going to happen. The Democrats come down, they hand it to their banks. It was the Democrats who gave the banks their power. It's the Democrats who are going to give it more. And he's just waiting for that guy to come out and hammer that for sale sign in the road. And the banker's going to go up and say, how much you want for it? He's going to say, well, I want $750,000. It's how much it cost me to build it and maintain it. Banker's going to go, I'll be back in 2 weeks. Your wife's, whatever insulary events are going on, you're going to drop that price. You're going to need a quick fix to get out. And your banks own it in the end anyway. So they get bigger, stronger. Maybe, though, in your plan, if we have to do it again next year, which they're already trying to pose, we can do that. And it will be only banks that get hit.
The other option is just not to impose moratoriums. That's my favorite.
Oh, bingo. Free market.
But that's not going to happen. We're not a free market. The government loves its control. And I guess that could lead us into the next topic, but
that's why I don't back government plays. I will always argue for first principles: life, liberty, and property. Always. And if my argument falls in line to where I'm arguing for JP Morgan Chase to get theirs, that's where it'll land, because I will always argue first principles.
Well, I agree. First principles are nice in theory.
I say they're mandatory for a free state.
And we're not a free state.
No, we're not.
No.
And you
That's
could
what I'm trying to get at. We're not a free state.
Even under Bitcoin, you can lose that. The government can find a way to rob that, to take account of that, to steal it.
Well, I would argue that would be very difficult to do.
Unless you done difficult things to steal from the populace before.
So here's this. If you don't have a police force, it's hard to take from people. So you need to pay your police force, right?
True.
Okay, so if you have a Bitcoin economy and you can't just generate Bitcoin out of your butt, how do you pay your police force to go round up people and collect Bitcoin?
You remember the Iran-Contra affair?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know
that
what
was a long time ago?
Do you know what that was about?
The weapons?
No, but what was it about in the end? What was the end point of Iran-Contra?
Oh, gosh, I was so young. All I remember was Oliver North. He got hammered.
The end point was to make money to support CIA black operations and other operations in the Contras. That's what it was about. So the Iran-Contra is hilarious. They would take weapons, they would buy weapons from Iran, mark them up, and sell them for a profit. At the same time, they would collect drugs from Colombia, because the airplanes have to make 2 trips, right?
Right. Okay. That makes sense.
And bring drugs in and mark them up and sell them for a profit. You see what I'm saying?
But that's because they have a monopoly on the weapons and the drugs. If you're living in a free
it's because they specifically didn't have a monopoly. They'd been ordered by Congress not to do this. So when the government wants to make money, the government will make money. The ideal thing is to not have a government, but that's even a bridge too far for me to dream of right now.
Yeah, you're probably right on that.
But so you're in a Bitcoin economy and they need to pay. I mean, the police may be the first thing to go. Sure. The police may be the first thing to go. But let's say a black ops, small unit, small element of, that includes, some contact personnel and maybe some highly efficient computer hacker types. Well, how are they going to pay for that? They'll find a way.
That's like saying Walmart's going to invest in an aircraft carrier to prevent competition from reaching the shores of America.
You know why they don't?
Because they use the American aircraft carrier.
They don't need to. They want that competition to come in because that competition sells at Walmart. But you know what Walmart will do? Is they'll have regulations written so competition can't rise up within nation.
Right. And to write regulations,
yep,
a funded government. Because regulations are pretty much worthless unless you have someone to enforce it. And to have someone enforce it, you have to have an initial boost of income to raise your army to enforce the regulations.
Yeah.
So
Believe me, I'd love it if I didn't have to pay my mortgage for a month or two. I'd love it.
you'd make out okay because you still have a job.
I'd make out like a bandit.
Mhm.
And if I lost my job, I would love to pay. I would love to not have to pay my mortgage. But I've got to fall back on principle that I have to cover my debt. I made an oath essentially that this is what I would do every month. And it didn't say in there stipulate whether the government decided to take a huge shit on the economy, or it just said, this is what you'll pay. And I said, that's what I'll pay.
So you'll have a lot of empty houses and people sitting on the streets.
We will. We're going to have a
That would
change.
make a lot of
We're going
sense.
to have a change in economy. And I've thought a lot about this. We've spent way too long on this, but I've thought a lot about,
It's a good topic.
we've talked before, but I've thought a lot about, what change could this do in labor and economy? I've thought a lot about it. And maybe usury banks will go away. I don't know. I know a lot of people dream of having a bank that doesn't charge usury. I wonder how a bank would exist without charging usury.
Well, doesn't the Federal Reserve have a 0% right now?
But the Federal Reserve gets their money in backflow. Excuse me, the beer is making me burp. The Federal Reserve probably gets its money in backflow back from the banks, not as interest.
Hmm.
But then again, the Federal Reserve also buys bonds, buys treasuries. Those are a whole different animal. That's where you're selling off not the idea that a loan's out there. You're selling off actual land, not the structure on it. You're selling off the important part under it. That's a whole different animal. But the Federal Reserve, well, that's a deep institution. I don't think it's one structure. I think it's a multitude of structures and ideas all bonded together in a big Gordian knot.
Yeah, it's definitely a rat race that's too complicated to follow to the source for a single individual such as myself.
Or even, I don't even think it's a source. I think it's a conglomerate.
Well, no doubt. It's an oligarchy of sort.
Yep. But anyways, that's where we live in. Can we get rid of the Federal Reserve? I would say, leading into the next point, that moving towards a Bitcoin or moving towards a diverse economy that doesn't have to be made by or commissioned by any one organization is the way to do that. My thoughts on Bitcoin. Bitcoin is not commissioned, where the government commissions money to be made from the Federal Reserve. Or if you could argue it, the Federal Reserve comes to the government and says, you will want this. And they say, yeah, we want that, but that's,
They also corner the market on it too. It's not like I can mint.
They corner the market. And there's probably a pretty good chance that all centralized banks work together at the top. Even when you see them arguing when the BRICS was supposedly rising, I'll bet that was planned by, in conjunction with everybody. But so Bitcoin is a non-commissioned entity. It's a known amount. It's trackable and traceable. When I say it's trackable and traceable, you know how much has changed hands. You just, at this point in time, don't know whose hands. Trackable, traceable, so that what that means is it cannot be inflated sneakily. So someone can't say, oh, I'll inflate it here by spending 35, but I'll pump in an extra 10 to inflate it, which you can't expand the amount out there. The amount is not there. The amount is known, and we haven't reached the end of how much can be made yet, but there is an end. Right. And so let's go real quick into Let's focus on Bitcoin as our cryptocurrency of argument today. How about that? There's other coins out there, Light, Dash. There's literally hundreds of them. But to boil it down and make it simple, we'll just talk about Bitcoin today. I'm going to first start out with my layman's knowledge of it. Bitcoin is generated by a computer running a program, and the program solves a problem, an equation. And as it solves the equation, a Bitcoin is generated. And each problem, it gets successively, I can't talk. It gets harder each time a problem is solved. So the first problem.
No, that is not true. That is not true. Let me stop you there.
Okay.
So if there are two computers mining Bitcoin, the algorithm will stay the same difficulty. But if maybe 5 of your friends jump in, then the algorithm changes its difficulty so that the guessing game lasts roughly 10 minutes. It always wants to last roughly 10 minutes for Bitcoin. Other coins, it's different.
So it takes 10 minutes for a coin to be made?
It takes 10 minutes for a block of data to be processed on the Bitcoin chain. So, yes.
How long does that take how long of the computer mining does it take to make a Bitcoin?
So every time a block is discovered, the transaction fees of the data of everyone working within that block, plus a miner's reward, is generated. So every 10 minutes, you're going to generate revenue as a miner who successfully guesses the block number.
Okay.
They call that the difficulty equation. Yeah.
Okay.
And you can think of it like a guessing game. Like if I have a number between 1 and 1,000 in my head, I want an adequate amount of people playing the game so that someone guesses that number within 10 minutes.
Okay.
And that's how the equation.
And so does each block make one Bitcoin?
No, each block will make a quantity of Bitcoin is set up by the equation, and every 2 years it halves. So this May, Bitcoin, the current block reward, if someone guesses the block, is 12 Bitcoin.
Okay.
So.
And next year it'll be 6.
And next year it'll be 6.
Then after that 3. Then after that 1.5. And then after that 0.75. And then after that, what is it, 0.33 or something like that. And then after that. And so it keeps having until all the Bitcoin, because there's a set amount of Bitcoins, like 34,678 million or something like that.
21 million Bitcoins total can exist according to that algorithm.
Okay. And then, but your Bitcoin is broken down. So it's decimals of a Bitcoin. So you may say you're going to buy something in Bitcoin. It may cost you 5.0095 Bitcoin, or it might cost you 0.087 Bitcoin, whatever the value is. And that's where it crosses into nominal value, correct?
Right. Think of the dollar as 100 pennies, right? You have 100 cents in the dollar. So they have 2 decimal points in the dollar.
Think of a Bitcoin as a $2,000 bill that breaks down into pennies.
Yeah, it's 8 decimal places.
Mm-hmm.
So you can really cut that thing up.
Yeah. And so anyway, so that's the rundown on what Bitcoin is. And for further questions, feel free to reach out, and I'll have Dave write you back, and I'll read the messages and educate myself at the same time. Okay, so Dave, if someone wanted to dive into Bitcoin, what's step one? What's your suggestion if you want to get into Bitcoin? Where would you go first of all to find that? Where's the trusted places?
So there are about 3 exchanges in the United States that will allow us to connect to our bank accounts, and you can just like buy Bitcoin back and forth right out of your bank account, and you can sell the Bitcoin and put the money back into your bank account. So it's like an app. It's not that much different than PayPal, really.
Okay.
There are the two main exchanges are Coinbase and Gemini. And each one of those is licensed and regulated by the government. So when you buy Bitcoin at these exchanges, expect one day to probably maybe have to pay taxes on it if you make a huge profit when you sell it. Or, or there are other exchanges out there that you can send Bitcoin to, and you can buy other cryptocurrencies on those exchanges with your Bitcoin. Usually Bitcoin is the core cryptocurrency. So if I want to buy like Turtle Coin, I probably can't just buy it with a dollar stash of dollar bills. I actually have to purchase Bitcoin and then find a source that sells Turtle Coin for Bitcoin.
So that'd be like if I wanted to get, so let's say I've got pesos and I wanted to buy oil. I would first need to transfer those pesos into dollars, then buy oil with those dollars.
Yeah, exactly.
And then bring the oil back, sell the oil in Mexico for pesos, and repeat that circuit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Bitcoin is kind of, you know, the world's cryptocurrency.
Right. This is the universal. This is
Much like the dollar is the world's, fiat currency.
correct.
Okay. So you've got Coinbase and Gemini. Those are two that you can probably easier to exchange with, right?
Yeah, you just basically have to give up all your information to work with them, though. I mean, if you want to connect your bank account to a Bitcoin exchange, you're giving up your IDs. You got to take mug shots over the webcam. It is a very invasive process. Very.
Okay.
Won't lie. But
But that's probably so they can defend your Bitcoin on their end, correct?
well, the government.
Well, government, and also Bitcoin isn't a physical thing you hold. It's stored in the internet.
Correct. It's like an email. You own your email. You can send email to anyone, but not anyone can just log into your email account and look at all the email in your inbox. So think of cryptocurrency as the emails in your inbox, and you can have anyone send you those emails, but not anyone can just go into your inbox and invade those emails.
They can't extract those emails from you.
Correct.
Okay. So if someone wanted to be a rebel and wanted to buy Bitcoin off those two markets, where would they go?
Well, I am definitely one source. I help people acquire Bitcoin if I can. And then I also have a website that I recommend called localbitcoins.com. That one is beginning to become a little bit more invasive. eBay, surprisingly, will sell cryptocurrency. Square and a couple other apps. But the best way to do it is to get involved with Bitcoin communities in your local area. So Salt Lake City with Overstock.com. Overstock.com is a huge supporter of the cryptocurrency community, and they hold meetups every month or every other month. And you go to these meetups, you meet people involved in the crypto community, and lots of cryptocurrency exchanges there. People don't want to sell their cryptocurrency to the exchanges if they don't have to, because privacy issues, and I can totally understand that.
So it's kind of like a local agora. You
Yes.
go in the agora and barter cryptocurrency in the Agora situation. Okay.
And a lot of people might be asking, like, why would you go through all the trouble to just trade these digital tokens, these digital coins? Why?
It's kind
And
of the point.
what is the point? The point is, it's to separate separate money and government.
To separate your wealth from the government.
Correct.
Okay.
Just
Now,
like we wanted to separate religion and government, we should also be considering our future investment being the separation of money and government. And it was a very bloody episode of our history separating religion and government. Just throw that out there.
oh, I'd argue it was bloody separating money and government as well.
It hasn't happened yet, but
No, the Revolutionary War was, I know they'll tell you it was about tea, or they'll tell you it was about a 3% tax. No, it was because of currency. Because King said we can't strike our own coin here.
yeah, but you're just transferring from one government to another government entity in that point.
But no, when we, right after the Revolutionary War, you could have local coin. I've got an ancestor that was striking coin in Connecticut. His own coin. He struck his own money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's called, what's the word for it nowadays?
Freedom.
Forgery. Now they actually will come after you if you try to start your own currencies. Yeah.
Yeah. They'll come after you if you destroy their currency.
So there's no competition for currency. Government is the all-time currency. And cryptocurrency is supposed to be considered a commodity. So that's kind of how they legally skirt around this. But the truth is, I mean, if you want to buy a product and you pay in Bitcoin, it's a currency.
Now, let me ask you a question on that. What's the danger of if Bitcoin is used in mass? Say if Walmart and Amazon start accepting Bitcoin, what's the hazards with that being declared currency then?
I don't think the hazards would change any differently than what they are now. You are supposed to claim your cryptocurrencies on your taxes now. That is the law.
Okay.
How intense people actually follow that law, it's debatable, but it's not enforceable. So right now, the biggest concern with using cryptocurrency as a medium for large stores, I think, will just be the technical hurdle of managing it and the customers being able to use it properly and effectively, because there's a learning curve to using cryptocurrencies that you don't want to, you really don't want to lose your Bitcoin when you do your transactions, and you want to know what you're doing. So
Yeah, I've heard that. Let's jump into the next subject. I don't know other companies that have a technical issue with trading with it, because all the company would have to do would be to sign up with any of these markets, Coinbase, Gemini, whatever, and say, hey, we're going to deal with cryptocurrency here. Will you be our medium for that? We're going to throw $1 billion on your account, and we're going to throw, cryptocurrency exchanges through there, and we'll just proffer that exchange through that. And then, that money in your account is ours. That amount stays relatively static, but that's just a change with cryptocurrency, and then that shows up in your exchange for you to sell and replenish that amount. That'd be easy enough for them to do.
it's not much different than PayPal.
It's no different than PayPal, really. It's just a different symbol on there. Now, I have heard that there are thousands of Bitcoin or whatever that have been lost since it was invented, due to what you just mentioned, people losing their pins or dying while the Bitcoin is in their wallet. They die. That wallet hasn't been declared to go to the next of kin or whatever. And at that point, the Bitcoin is gone.
It's gone. It is gone.
Yes. Where it's not a physical item, it's gone. Now, what are the hazards? Because you've said before you lost some money when you first started in this.
Mhm.
That alone might scare people from diving into it. What are the hazards and mitigations people should know up front before they dive into this?
The biggest hazard is having to take responsibility for ownership. Um, like you said, I lost Bitcoin sending it to an incorrect address or bad investment, or I've had my share of blunders. And when I work with people, I definitely provide that information to them, how to best avoid those kind of blunders and where they should be storing their Bitcoin. But yes, when you send a Bitcoin to an improper address, if you get the address wrong and you send it, it's gone.
It just
So
it might show up in someone's wallet. They might just go, haha, good for me. Or it might show up in something that doesn't exist and then be gone.
it'll be unaccessible. We'll put it that way. It's not gone, it's just now unaccessible to you.
Okay.
It's out there in outer space somewhere, documented in some address, but no one will be able to reach it. No one will be able to transact with it.
Okay. Now, your Bitcoin wallet, is that set up like an email? Or is that set up through an exchange? Or how is that set up?
Well, you can have Bitcoin wallets that are through an exchange, in which part the exchange holds your Bitcoin much like a bank.
Okay.
Or you can have a Bitcoin wallet where you can be totally responsible for it, and you control the keys, you control whether or not where it goes, when it goes, because when you go to a bank, they decide when your money moves. You just tell them, hey, can you move my money? When you use a exchange, you're doing the same thing. Can you move my Bitcoin for me? That's
So
what you're asking them.
the bank may come with a little more security on that end where you're not going to forget your keys. They can they can have a means for you to contact them and recover issues. Whereas when you take control of it yourself, you take now is that where you set up a specific site that holds it and manage you manage it, or how does that work?
There's a few different methods. I mean, you can print off paper wallets, and that can be like a physical key for you to reclaim your cryptocurrencies later. Or you just have an app on the phone that is an actual hard wallet where you control the keys. And that is probably one of the most popular ways to do it. So again, just to recap, you can have a bank or exchange. We'll call the exchange the bank. They're holding your crypto for you, but you can sell it and buy it, sell it and buy it, move it to your account, move money from your account to the exchange right off your phone with ease. Or you can just have a straight cryptocurrency app that allows you to possess the keys yourself, but you won't be able to move money around into cryptocurrency through those kind of apps. It's just straight Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. No US dollars involved.
Okay. So then when you go to this Agora, are you exchanging these paper currencies? Like,
Well, I've seen people do it many different ways, and we'll just say that it's freedom of choice how you do it when you go there, and nobody's business is involved other than between you and the person who you exchange with.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would it be a good idea if you want to get into this to maybe go to that meetup and just kind of watch it, talk
Yeah,
around before you
that's how I
get
got
into
it.
it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And meetups usually occur over at the overstock.com building. They've got their own huge complex down there in Salt Lake, I think Draper area. And they have an entire auditorium, and someone usually presents different technologies or services that are coming online, and people do their trading and teaching. It's a gathering, and it's mostly just guys wearing glasses like this, but
Do I have to get a pair of glasses?
yeah, you
Some
probably do.
frames. Okay, so now to get so a guy gets established in cryptocurrency. You know, you can call Dave. Dave runs a business where he aids people in starting this up, correct?
I wouldn't call it a business, it's more like a hobby.
Okay. Dave has a hobby. Now, ideally it'd be nice to get it'd be nice to get cryptocurrency in general use in all over, whether it's Amazon all the way down to your barber, correct?
It will just take one large giant like Walmart or Amazon to accept cryptocurrency as payment to really skyrocket the value of cryptocurrency. Because right now, so few people use it, and there's so little of it that what we can buy for $100 right now, once it becomes a staple in the economy that's regularly used, that $100 will be exponentially more valuable. It'll be like Amazon stock back when it was pennies. But if there's only 21 million Bitcoins that can exist, and 1 million of them are already lost in outer space, that leaves 20 million to divide up amongst the population to utilize as the main cryptocurrency. So then you'll be branching out into Litecoin and other coins like that.
Yeah, there's other coins. There'll be an abundance of coins in there. And the coins may work or may not work in competition with each other. And I think that once cryptocurrency is used as currency, because right now it should be called crypto savings or something like that. But once it is mass used as currency, I don't even think you'll see a competition between them. You'll see hey, I take this is the kind of cryptocurrencies I take, and you may carry 3 or 4 in a wallet.
Yeah.
You may take 3 or 4. It'd be like Master, Visa, and American Express. They compete against each other on one layer, but certain places won't take American Express and it might just be that the owner of the business says, look, I started a wallet for Bitcoin. It was a pain in my ass. So I'm only going to take Bitcoin and I don't care. And you'll be like, hey, but all I've got is Litecoin. Well, that's when you got to say, yeah, the guy next door, he deals with Litecoin. Go talk to him. He'll square us up. And you go talk to him and say, hey, I spent $30 over there on Bitcoin, and all I have is Litecoin. And you can square up. There millions of ways that can be squared up. But once this is established as currency, I'm taking a long walk to a point. They can't inflate the value out from under you like they can with the dollar. The dollar, they can inflate it. So let's say you've got $1 in your hand in good heck in let's say you have $1 in your hand in 1900. Today's money, that dollar's probably worth Yeah, probably closer to around $70 in what you can buy with it, you know, and but they've inflated that out from under you. Whereas Bitcoin will be a set amount. They can't flush more Bitcoin in and make the value of the point oh whatever Bitcoins you have. They can't flush more money in and make that value smaller. That'll remain static, and then the rest of the world moves around it and adjusts its value in supply and demand.
And in fact, Bitcoin will be a deflationary currency because of those reasons that we've talked about. More adoption, loss of Bitcoins into outer space. Uh,
Yeah.
but just to let you know, there are large businesses already using it. You can pay your AT&T phone bill with Bitcoin. You can purchase items off of.
But who by choice has AT&T out here?
Well, I'm hoping T-Mobile will go that direction too.
What who by choice has T-Mobile out here?
Oh, that's the one I use.
Yeah, drive 30 miles west, it quits working.
Well, good thing I'm quarantined in my house. I won't discover that.
Yeah. But anyways, no, I'm just teasing those companies. No, I would like to see the adoption of more Bitcoin in there. And do they do it on an honest trade, or do they have a markup for you using cryptocurrency?
There's a middleman in there that converts the Bitcoins back to dollars, but I've noticed it's very, very comparative. It's fairly well traded. It's very honest, actually, in comparison to the exchanges.
I'll tell you, if I was a billionaire, that's what I would do. I would go to Verizon and I'd say, Verizon, do you want to sell Bitcoin? Yes, we do. All right. When they make a blue button that says sell Bitcoin, and when they do that, it comes to me and then I forward the dollars to you. Cause, and I just camp on all that Bitcoin.
Yeah, and the cool thing about cryptocurrencies is they constantly trade 24/7. And through this entire pandemic, Bitcoin went down since it started, but we're talking about like from maybe like 8,000 to 7,500. We're not talking about the huge cuts that the market took.
Well, let's talk about how much Bitcoin's gone up in the last 10 years.
Yeah, 10 years.
Meteoric rise.
Yeah.
10 years ago, a Bitcoin was what, $50 or less than 50, like $42 or something.
Gosh, probably not even that.
Yeah. And look at it now. You just said the magic word, $8,000. You know, what was it 4 years ago? It was barely peaking, $3,000.
I remember dancing around the house when it hit 800. I'm like, who thought it would ever get to that point? And everyone's telling you, sell it all. It's going to crash. I was in it for the long haul, and I'm in it for the moral philosophy of it anyway. So
yeah, that's the big thing. Sell it if you need to, but I would like to see it implemented. A centralized bank, even if they broke it up into state banks, I would be happier. But one single centralized bank for 350 million people, well, not even that. Excuse me. One single centralized bank for 350 million people on their direct use currency, and 700 billion people for commodity tradings. That's insane. That is scary to think about.
Yeah. If you believe in first principles and property rights and the non-aggression principle, then you're totally going against your very beliefs by not investing a few hours to learn this technology. I mean, if you could think about all the like World War I and World War II were only possible because of centralized governments centralizing money and being able to go door to door and collect your children like rent payments and throw them into the war grinder. With cryptocurrencies, you take the ability for governments to print their own money and go crazy with it in times of war. You take that ability away from them. You privatize money, and you will save lives in the future. You will save so many lives. War will be like small, tiny conflicts. It will not be large, grand conflicts like we have.
Well,
And
not just war, just taxation through inflation, the hidden tax. When they inflate your wealth out from under you.
that too. I mean,
That's
I,
that's the big thing. When they inflate your wealth. FDR, hero of anybody over 65, the great, American communist, just my personal feeling. Anyways, he stole all of the gold at $32 an ounce. And then came back next year and said, well, now it's $44 an ounce. He stole all that wealth from everyone, gave it to the government, and then blew it up, and then expanded and declared this is how much it's worth now.
and another cool example of why this technology is fantastic. Well, we're in a pandemic right now, and my wife lives in Brazil, or is from Brazil,
I was going to say,
and her family's down there. So her family's down there. They're trying to help people get food products because they're all quarantined in their houses, losing their jobs, and the economy's freezing their assets. So
yeah,
Western Union, they're not open on the pandemic,
well, it's not just that.
and
You don't have to pay them. You don't have to pay Western Union the 10% or whatever it is.
yeah. Well, we couldn't use Western Union because there weren't any Western Unions open in Brazil. And PayPal, they only allow certain Brazilians to have transactions with Americans if they have visas to America. So if somebody's been to America and they're Brazilian, they can get transactions through PayPal with me. But anyone I know who has not been to America or has a visa to come here, the transactions stay frozen and are denied by PayPal.
Really?
So
So the Visa declares the viability of that transaction through PayPal.
that's my theory because I've tested it with people with visas and people without visas. And everyone who has not been to America or has not been granted a visa to come to America has not been able to have a successful PayPal transaction with anyone American I know.
Hmm.
So that's coming in the future.
So
for sure.
PayPal
Yeah.
probably requires the Visa for proof of identity for those transactions.
But not so. Not so, because people in Brazil can transact on PayPal with each other, visa or no visa to America.
Well, I said for those transactions, for those international transactions, they require a Visa
International.
for proof of identity. Now, I thought, so is Brazil getting hit hard? I thought Bolsonaro didn't shut down the economy, or did he finally shut it down?
It depends on the governor and the area.
So it's the same thing.
Yes, it's getting hit
going on up here. Governors and mayors are having which I think is good. I think governors and mayors should have the most effect. Honestly, I think Trump should say, it's up to you guys. You guys know, you guys got the feel for where you're at. I'm not in, Nevada or Utah or Colorado or New Mexico. I'm in DC. So, and I'm locked away in this, goofy mansion. So that's what he should do. He should just come out and say, I introduce you a doctor, and then he should walk off stage in the doctor talk, which is what should happen. The president shouldn't have his finger on the pulse of anything.
Yeah, he's having a hard time down there right now. But I will say this: we got the Brazilian AIDS aid foundation that was helping people receive food assistance. We got them around $750 through Bitcoin Cash so that they can actually make the purchases for more food and keep the aid flowing. And we wanted to use PayPal, but it just wouldn't work. We wanted to try Western Union. No one was open to get the money on the other side.
How hard
So
is it?
uh,
How hard is it hitting them down there? Just on a side note.
harder than us, I
Yeah.
think.
Okay.
Just because they're so poor, I mean, it's a poor country still. It's not like America where resources just floweth.
Well,
It's hard to make a living.
and you can't pop out of socialism and be wealthy. I mean, you know, as they've been socialists down there for how long? And they're taking their first try at fascism. You just can't pop out of socialism and be wealthy. It just doesn't happen.
Yes, yeah, it's challenging.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to build wealth. Wealth is built, whether you build it in physical products, in money, in Bitcoin, in anything. Wealth is built. It doesn't appear.
And in Brazil, even within my lifetime, like my friends and family in Brazil, they've had the banks seize their accounts and just shut down. It's like all your money's just gone just because the bank said so.
We've been
And
awful lucky on that here.
yeah, America's never had to deal with that much. But
No,
you
they've done other shady things.
yeah, I don't deny that. But again, if you want to avoid the immorality, and you cannot avoid the immorality if you are not willing to learn this technology. This is a technology that it's out there. People everywhere know about it. If you're not willing to utilize this technology, you're part of the problem. It's like saying when back in the days when we're living in the North and the South has slaves, we'd be like, that's too bad. But then there were those who actually housed the escapees and helped them get to Canada for freedom. That is the difference. Right now, we're talking about money that makes us free versus money that enslaves us. So you're going to have to deal with Ilmar Omar's introduction bill violating the rights and transgression upon the first, otherwise Bitcoin.
I don't think Bitcoin would have saved this shutdown that we have, or stopped it. If morons decided to shut us down, they'd still shut us down. And I don't think Bitcoin would have made it available for the government to step in and put a moratorium on mortgage and rents either. So that supports my side.
Let me pose this scenario. If we were in a Bitcoin economy and you get this little notice on your phone saying, hey, we need to send $3.7 million to Wuhan to this biolab so that they can study these coronaviruses in bats that are 1,000 miles away from Wuhan. Can you send us some Bitcoin? Would you have sent money to that cause?
No, but well,
Okay.
I don't know. They would have to actually justify to me why they were studying it. So that's the argument is under a Bitcoin based economy, could they still extract taxes? Yes. Rome did it. Rome had a free market coin system. Rome had parallel coin systems. And the Roman coin was so devalued, so inflated, that when it came time to pay your taxes, and here's how Rome did it. Rome would say, I want to bid on people to collect taxes in Tooele. And Tooele thugs and warlords would go to Rome and say, I'll get you $750,000 in taxes. and another thug would come up and say, I'll get you 751. The warlord would come in and say, I'll get you 800,000. All right, you get the bid. And he would go and extract those by whatever means he had at his discretion. And because their money was inflated, their gold coin was so diluted with stuff that is not gold, you could not pay your Roman taxes in Roman coin. You
Yeah,
had
but coins are physical.
they didn't have computers then. I'm saying you couldn't pay it in that coin. You could pay it in raw gold or one of those other currencies that were free market. That's all you could pay in. You could not pay. If you handed them Roman coin, they would hand it back and say, you need to go trade this for raw gold or whatever. Say you're in Spain where the silver mines were, or silver. Or back then, it was a little while after. You know where the word dollar comes from, don't you?
Can't say I do.
So it was a town in Germany, a Roman town, that made coins that were so precisely weighted that it was considered the judge for the weight of all other coins. The town was called Dollar. It's where the word dollar comes from. It wasn't a Roman coin, it was a dollar coin.
So private money was trying to show its face back then.
Oh, private money showed its face. It was perfectly legal. Not only was it legal, Rome wanted that because it had diluted its own coin.
And that's the definite path our government is going down.
That's a path
No way.
every government has gone down. Every government in history has done this.
Yeah, and I think we'll see it in our lifetime. But I think there's gonna be a collapse, and there's no way the debt can be paid back. It's impossible.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, no. They're just hoping that they're out of office and retired, and the guy that wins their seat after him, they don't care if he's Republican or Democrat or third party or whatever. Once they're out, they don't care. They just hope that it's not them that it collapses on.
Musical chairs. It really is.
Yep. Well, that's
So
why.
if you wanna,
That's why, there's been books written on what's the best government. And a lot of people say a just constitutional monarchy is the best government. You know why? Because you got a guy that's there the whole time. And when it collapses, you got a guy to hang. His well-being is tied into his country's well-being. Whereas a politician, our senators and congressmen now, they're making money, they're making deals, they're making friends, they're making connections. Let's talk about Ilhan Omar, right? I don't dislike her. I think she's like all the others that was poorly educated through the long march through the institutions. Poorly educated. She sees evil around every bush. She thinks in these idealistic socialist ways. That's fine. But she's making connections. She's making friends in other cities, other districts, other states, other countries. She's probably made a handful of friends across the border to the north, right? They're just right there. She could drive there. Well, let's say dreams and ideas that she has causes a major disruption in this nation. She has a connection to reach out to. And it's not like a connection, because I have friends in Canada, but it's not like I could call and say to them, hey, I fucked this up down here. I got to pop smoke. I got to come up there. Can I come up there and stay with you? They're like, I got 3 kids in a 3-bedroom house. No, you can't come stay with me. Oh, Well, can I park an RV in your driveway? Are you going to get a job up here and pay for that electricity and water? Well, I mean, I will as soon as I can. Well, we can't afford to have you. Where her friends are, you bet. You know, I've got a west wing of my mansion that's not being used. Come on up.
Mm-hmm.
Bring the family. Bring your brother and your ex and your kids and your new husband. Bring them all, your parents, whoever. That sheik that brought you over here when you were 12, bring him up too. Got a safe haven for you, right? So she doesn't have to worry about that. But a monarch has to leave in disgrace, or he has to see what the guillotine looks like under gravity. You see what I'm saying?
Well, I'd prefer not to have a monarch, though, to be honest with you.
Oh, me either. I'm an extreme libertarian, but if I had to have a government, one that's held accountable is one I would choose.
Yeah, I don't think one of those exists, though, Jared. I'll be honest with you. I think the path we're on is the right path. It's watching this economy and system deteriorate while we build a different system parallel to it that when it is disintegrated, when our horse dies in the desert, it'll die next to a rocket ship. And I think the future is bright.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great. That's why I want to teach first principles. Because if we don't instill that into people now, they are going to turn to socialism. Because the youth are louder, the youth are dumber, and the youth have more energy than the people who know what the fuck is going on.
Mm-hmm.
And the youth are socialist.
That they are, my friend. There's no doubt that our institutions today teach. I mean, I don't think there are any schools that even teach economics that would allow a kid to learn how to make a Bitcoin transaction, which I think is a shame. The technology's been here for 10 years, and there's no education in cryptocurrency and economics in college or high school. And that's scary from my perspective. I think that should be public knowledge. But like you said, the socialists can't control that.
Well, there's what, 3 schools that teach Austrian economics? The rest is all Keynesian or Chicago. You know, I could even handle if Chicago was taught nationwide, you know. But we're living under Keynesianism. We're seeing it, you know. Debt is value.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're learning. But
everything's about how to use debt.
Yep. But it's proven. I mean, how many people, you know, and that's another hard part. Another hard part, a barrier of entry for me when I look at it to Bitcoin is, let's say someone has $50 liquidity at the end of their 2-week paycheck that they can play with, right? Until they have a means to spend that, there's no value in them in them exchanging that for Bitcoin. You know what I mean? Because let's say,
well, it's $50 about forethought.
I get this $50 and I like to go bowling every other Friday night. Does a bowling alley take Bitcoin? No. So what they can do is they can take that $50, spend those calories exchanging it into Bitcoin. And then when it's time to go bowling, spend those calories exchanging it back and then go bowling. You know, will that be good education for them? Sure. But does it take away from them maybe cooking dinner one night or, you know, making sweet love to their wife? You know, so I think we need to try to bolster to get more businesses. So let's say even if we got a couple of businesses, you mentioned a coffee shop the other day, or a barber shop or something where they had a reason that they could throw that $50 into Bitcoin and then spend, you know, 20 or 30 of it, or even just, you know, $2 each paycheck sits aside in Bitcoin, but they can spend the rest where it's a nominal amount they can use, where they don't have a lot of liquidity at the end of their paycheck paying all their bills. You see what I'm saying? We
Yeah, yeah, I do.
businesses to take on Bitcoin. How do we do that?
And this isn't going to change the social class of most people. Most people are going to start using Bitcoin when it becomes, like you said,
That's the thing.
a
It needs to be a usable item for the average American, especially once the middle class is completed being hollowed out and we have essentially a two-tier system, and then we fall back into a neo-feudalism. You know, we need to have Bitcoin usable.
Yeah. And I think you'll see a huge middle class arise once Bitcoin is part of the economy.
I don't think Bitcoin makes middle class. Business owners make middle class.
You can be a business owner if you have a free market economy.
Yeah, but you can be a business owner under whatever. But once you wallow out that ladder that gets you to it, you know, that's when it becomes harder. We'll become a workers and an owners class instead of a owner worker class. But
Well,
this
I
is all,
think once
this is all theoretical stuff that doesn't bear arguing out. Of course, that changes by location and needs and desires of the community. But
you have access to the toolbox, people are going to bang on the hammer.
yeah,
That's
what
it comes down to.
I don't see how Bitcoin would change the equation of being able to own a business. I think government going away, regulations loosening, that changes the equation. And whether it's done through Bitcoin or that's done through, a Ron Paul type getting elected in every seat, and the presidency, and Napolitano types getting put to the judiciary, I think that would change it. I would change it quick, fast. But another big question, this is one I've had for a long time. Is Bitcoin tied to an existing internet?
Say that again.
Is Bitcoin tied to an existing internet?
Well, Bitcoin is fueled by the internet, but it will have to be on the internet. There's no way to not have Bitcoin on the internet. So it has to utilize the internet in a form in order to function and stay alive.
So if let's say in China, I know Bitcoin's used quite a bit, usually on an exchange to gain revenue in China, but let's say China hit a kill switch on the internet. What would happen to that Bitcoin? Obviously they'd have a hard time getting to it, but could it theoretically go away? What could happen?
You would have to kill all the internet all over the world at once in order to end Bitcoin. So you'd have to just do away with the entire internet.
Is if I lost internet here locally, I'd have to go to the closest source of internet to facilitate that exchange.
Yeah, it's not like it goes away. The exchange of a currency on a blockchain is always going to be on the blockchain somewhere on the internet, depending on how many computers are running that blockchain. And with Bitcoin, you have more computing power working Bitcoin right now than any other source of computing power on the world. All the supercomputers in the world do not equate to the Bitcoin network.
Yeah, because the Bitcoin network is thousands of people. There was a Bitcoin mining building here in Tooele there for a while.
Yeah.
There at the old.
And my laptop. If my laptop runs the Bitcoin equation, it is a source of the Bitcoin blockchain that would have to be destroyed in
And it
order
collects,
for.
and it kind of collects and tracks all at the same time, right? Not collects, but it kind of tracks all the Bitcoin in existence, where it's broken down to what decimal and everything else. It just doesn't tell you where or who. It just tells you that it's there in that decimal, correct?
Yeah, and the more time that goes by, the more blocks that move, the more solid that data is. So that's why they'll say, hey, wait 6 transactions before you say that Bitcoin arrived.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, we got to cut this show off. We've gone on for a little over an hour now, and we'll definitely revisit this. If you guys have Bitcoin questions, reach out to Dave or reach out to me, and I'll reach out to Dave for you. If you have first principles questions, reach out to me. If I don't have the answer, I will find it for you. And if if you get the chance, go on to Mass for Twilla. Follow them, and regardless of whether you support the shutdown, support their mission. This is a mission done in good faith, and it's done at no cost. There's no pain involved, and they're filling a gap. And even if they were charging for this mess, I'd still support them because they see a hole in the market. They're filling it, and that's what we want, good, honest people to do. But they're doing this for free, so support them. Go on there, support them, show them love. Let's try to let those people know that the community appreciates what they're doing. All right. Any last words, Dave?
No, it was a little bit more than a happy hour this time around, but
Yes,
happy nonetheless.
Well, it was happy, but I don't know. How much do you drink in a happy hour? I drank.
Oh gosh, I went through 2 drinks myself.
Finished off my Guinness. Started in on my my Goose Island. Got to see what's next on the coffers of alcohol. All right. Thanks for joining us. Hope everyone has a good weekend, and be safe out there. Hopefully, I'm nervous about this economy. I am. Not going to lie. I'm not going to lie. I feel like the nation's walking a tightrope right now. And that's the problem when we get these hard political divides. We start walking a tightrope. And I don't see us coming out of a political divide anytime soon. I don't see it. If Trump gets reelected, the left is going to fall further into their anger and hysteria. And, well, let's face it, if Biden's reelected, we get to have front row seats to dementia, But I don't see any. I think, maybe a third party will rise up. Jacob Hornberger. Oh, yeah, house cleaning. I said like Scott Hornberger on the show with Jay from the Utah 2A group. It's Jacob Hornberger. He's a libertarian. He's good on his first principles, everything I look for. And not that we'll see a good candidate get that far anytime soon, but he's the guy that if he shows up on the ballot, I might go down and vote, maybe. But if it's just Dementia Joe and Captain Orange, I'm staying home. That sticker means nothing to me. All right.
Well, I hope your guy gets on the ballot.
That. Remember, give her the wrong address when you tell her that. I don't need her showing up at my door, yelling at me and swinging punches. I know she loves the orange man. I like it more than Biden, but just because John Wayne toilet paper is better than using your hand doesn't mean I want to use John Wayne toilet paper. You know what John Wayne toilet paper is, don't you?
Leaves?
No, it's the single ply, rough and tough, and don't take no shit off nobody.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Sounds like
Give her my best. Everyone reach out to the Mass for Twilla people and show them some appreciation. You don't need to argue with them either. They're not forcing you to do anything. So don't argue with them. Just say, hey, thanks. Thanks for what you've done for the community. You know? Do you get mad at the Boy Scouts when they go mow? Well, okay, there's not Boy Scouts anymore. At whoever when they go mow old ladies' lawns, or do you get mad at people who help out their neighbors? No. So don't get mad at these ladies. Or, well, and there's.
I would love to hear their point of view. I mean, I can't even imagine what goes through somebody's head to be aggressive towards this organization.
It's the internet. The internet has made it so that there's no cost to being a dipshit. Because right now there's a cost to being a dipshit. People can touch you when you're out in public. But on the internet, there's no cost. They don't feel that humanity. They don't smell that other person. There's no cost. So through the screen, there's no cost. Like arguing with a football game, you know.
Yep.
That's the thing. We've got to evolve to catch up with our technology, I think. Well, obviously I can't. I mean, I'm still a Neanderthal. The rest of you humans left me behind long before Christ rose. Yeah. All right, Dave. Have a good night, man. We'll meet you guys back up next week.
All right, man. Have a good day.
Yes, sir.